the largest in the country in the history of debt capital market in Nigeria, right? 3 months, 6 months. Can we tap into invoice discounting? Maximum 9 months. These are options. Commercial papers.
Flathead in 2019. Can you tell us how important is this gathering to the sustainability and the growth of the telecom industry in Nigeria?
Right. Well, you are looking at an assembly of all the critical stakeholders in the telecoms ecosystem in this country. We're all here. Everybody is here. And I think there is no better place and time to discuss the future of the telecommunications industry and by extension, the sector than from this gathering. You've heard the panelists, what they said. You've heard the NCC giving an account of the resolutions reached at the previous summit. How far we have gone, by implementing items of the communique to the tune of 80%. Only 20% remain to be implemented. But for the COVID, we would have implemented all the resolutions 100%. I insisted personally that this implementation progress must be rendered, here, so that people would see how seriously we consider this summit. And you can see from the comments made by critical participants, and I believe by people watching this event, that we consider this as very, very serious business indeed. And so we are here to do a review of what transpired, at the last summit, so that we can be able to fashion and charter a course for the progress of the sector going forward. This is the purpose of this gathering that we're having today.
Some players and attenders in this conference are calling for some sort of regulation and protection for Tier 2 licensees.
Correct.
In order to be able to sustain their growth in the industry.
Correct.
Is there something that the regulatory body is doing to attend to this cry?
Right. We have listened to this very, very valid observation, from the critical stakeholders. And that is the essence of coming here. You can see all the critical members of staff in the commission are here. I'm here, the executive commissioners are all here. The very senior directors are also here. Whatever advice, whatever observation is made, whatever suggestion, is made, will be taken seriously, and we will, on our part, I'm talking about the commission, do everything possible to see to the implementation, of the advice, the suggestions being made, the observations, to the letter. So we've listened very, very well. We've been doing so much for the smaller operators. Those are the second tier, stakeholders. Even before, we have been doing so much for them. If you like, even the AOL they pay less than the major players, And if there is more we can do, including staggering payment of, operational license, we are a flexible regulator. One characteristic of the NCC is that important component of flexibility in regulation and regulatory diplomacy, through which we resolve issues amicably without recourse to any legal action.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why do we have this gap? So it's part of the things that we need to brainstorm and to see to what extent we can unlock some of the bottlenecks. It remains very vibrant within the context of Nigeria, propelling growth, a new stream of revenue for the telcos. And I would say this is very important.
What the situation is. It has been said, and I'm very grateful for the conversation so far, that one, we don't have from the banking sector the structure for long-term infrastructure financing. We know that. So you need to go outside. But do you also also know that the terms and conditions of the country as it is today also makes it extremely difficult for foreign investors to come in with significant equity investment. I give you an example. Under my other business that is not Artcom, we've been able to bring in some good investment over the last few months into the space in USD, all equity. But I'm concerned, even as I bring in more equity, from a standpoint that today we bring in money, we have to get CCI, which means you have to convert the money into Naira at official rate. You are generating your revenue in Naira, and then by the time you convert it back to USD at parallel market rate, you are in trouble. So how do you fix that? It's not just something for an event like this where we come to talk about it. These are serious issues that has to deal with the current banking policy, the federal government policy, in terms of financial transactions in the country. That is the reality of it. It's easy to come and speak, but I would truly hope, if not today, maybe tomorrow, we can actually get like the MD of MTN, Airtel, some of these people that have been successful in this market, especially bringing in money, to talk to us about what are the things that needs to be done. I have my personal experience, because as I said, I've been here for a long time, I know what you've done, but I can also tell you it's extremely difficult for people that don't have faith in this country to bring in investment. I'm speaking this as somebody that has taken the risk, but I can assure you the condition in the country makes it extremely difficult for somebody that does not believe in this country to bring in investment and take the risk that in another 10 years, the revenue generated would even match the investment you brought in, talk less of the would-be return on investment. So these are the realities of it. We've had a conversation on setting up a telecom industry bank. We've discussed all this for many years now. We talk of the infrastructure bank and all that. But if we say all this without realizing that the country as a nation have institutional challenges that we must be honest enough to address, sincere enough to analyze it and say, okay, this is where we are. I'm so happy with the presentation from the Islamic MD because he gets it. Again, he was sincere to say, hey, this is what we can do. We can't go beyond this. Yes, there is money, but truly, is there money if you can't access it? Let's be realistic. Is there truly money if you can't access it? The answer is no. So I'm hoping tomorrow, in particular, during the CEO's forum, we can really sit down and dive into this in a sincere manner, where it goes beyond the traditional, what I call textbook solutions. Oh, set up infrastructure bank, set up this. Let's be really about the challenge on ground. Okay? Everybody has spoken. There's nothing new here that has been said that, in my opinion, have not been said in previous events we've had. There's really nothing new. Everything I've heard today, I've heard it before. So how do we move forward from repeating the same things to sitting down to say, hey, it's time to come up with a solution, a workable solution. And that requires one understanding the challenge in a sincere way, and then coming up with solutions. I know there's a solution, but we just need to say, how do we address it in a sincere way? That's just my submission.
If you don't mind, and then speak to the issue. You raised very critical concerns. You made some comparatives with the oil and gas industry, with the other thriving sectors like manufacturing and all of that. The question now is, how should the industry move forward in terms of regulations to ensure sustainability and growth, rather than the perception that this industry is doing well? How should this industry be repositioned from the fallout of the Nigerian Telecoms Leadership Summit to the growth and the benefit of all and sundry?
Okay. First, where we need more regulation is more of collaborative regulation. So it's not regulation as it were, is regulation as it will be. So that can help, whether it's by mergers and acquisitions or by injection of funds from investors from within. And then it will also enable collaborations with players outside of the telecommunications industry, be they banks, be they maybe insurance or manufacturing, because ultimately telecommunications is the oxygen of the new economy, the digital economy. So it's absolutely important and helpful actually for the regulator to modify the kind of or the kinds of regulations that will come from them into the industry. And then with regards to the Telecoms Leadership Summit, this is the second edition, and the impact of the first edition is we're starting to see it. So this happening going forward will definitely improve the industry. More importantly, with this, other sectors of the economy are able to see the value of the telecommunications industry and how the things that we develop, that we produce from within here plug into their own industries, and it would naturally expand the not just portfolio but expand the services of the beneficiaries and the producers, so to speak. So telecommunications is producing products, services, innovations going into each of these sectors. The sectors would naturally grow, and then ultimately as a country we will benefit from it. We only know that we will plant seeds, but what trees, the height of the trees, the size of the trees, the people who will eat of the fruits of the tree, we do not know. So ultimately this is going to help grow the economy in such a way that we don't even know the kinds of innovations that will come out of it in the future. But what's important is to inject as much as we can resources, revenues, innovation into this pipe, so that ultimately as the different sectors are branching out in growth, in prosperity, more and more Nigerians can tap into this, and then ultimately the economy can grow to the best of our own interests, all of us.
Now, Mr. Chijoke, I beg your pardon. Funding is critical to the survival of this industry.
Yes.
How should the industry position itself as an attraction, as a bride, as the apple that everybody is looking to tap into for the greater good of society in terms of engaging the financial institution?
Okay, first we have to put a lot more information out there. Information is not necessarily making noise about who's raising funds. No, it is to speak to the projects we are involved in. Because if you come out and say, oh, I've raised XYZ millions, it doesn't exactly tell the person who's listening that you have needs. But when you say you're working on A, B, C, D, E that has engulfed or that has, gulped XYZ, and then you have a shortfall of DEF, then it's the people who are listening, the bankers, the investors, the capital, those in the capital markets are able to see where, okay, this is a viable project. This is where there is opportunity for us to come in, and that's where the funds can come in. So putting information out there is not to tell them just about how well we're performing, but to also speak to areas where we need more funds to perform more optimally. And there is no way that those who have the capital would hear that and not be able to get into the conversations as to how they can come in, fund, of course, make benefits for themselves. So naturally, funding is important. But before we get to funding, we have to also put out accurate information that they can work with. That, I think, is the next line where we as a sector should invest in. Let us put information out there, proper, critical information necessary for our own growth and for investors to come into the space.
Mr. Chijoke, one of the speakers mentioned how critical the voice of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is to government, is to policy makers. Is there a gap in a voice for the industry, and how do we?
I would say there is and there isn't. There is in the sense that as a collective, where maybe we have an all-encompassing industry association, and you have one person speaking there is that gap. But as an industry, for all the subsectors, absolutely we have people speaking for the subsectors. You have the engineer Adebayo, who was also here today. You have myself. I speak for the value-added services people. There is Artcon, that's Ike Namani. There are a bunch of us who speak for the subsectors, but as a collective for the telecoms industry, no, we do not have that yet. And certainly that's something that I'm sure we will look into and find solutions to plug the hole.
A little away from this conference, you made reference to the fintech industry as not as innovative as presumed.
Yes.
Could you put some clarification?
It's simple. It's monetizing a redundant part of value that's been created. Is value, but is it exactly innovation? It's basically saying short sleeves have been produced. Can we stretch them to long sleeves? It provides more cover. But then the man who created the shirt is the one who truly can lay claim to innovation, not the one who made it go from short sleeves to long sleeves. That's what I'm saying. Fintech essentially is driving the redundant value that banks are unable to monetize. But what fintech should really be doing is having banks that people outside of the immediate urban areas can access. For instance, no matter what fintech service I use, how do I send money to my mother in the village or to my father? How do they access medical services? If their car breaks down on the road, can they use any fintech service to pay for that value? Do you understand what I mean? So fintech is not necessarily your ability to transfer funds from point to point. It should transition from that to where I can pay you from my phone without a bank. So that intermediary bank should then be what we would call fintech should be the one creating and managing the value, not a situation where I'm using short code to pay you and I say that's fintech. Or I go shopping in an urban center and I take my phone, I tap the POS. That's fintech, but whose problem are they really solving? The people who really don't have the problem of accessing funds, accessing their money and using it as they like. Where the problems really lie are those who can't access funds, who, even if they have, is kept in cash because there's no other value, there's no other way they can store that value. That's what fintech should be driving. That's my position.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for this question. I want to commend what the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria is doing. And like you said, we want a situation whereby our method of advocating for the growth of the Nigerian telecommunication sector to change. And what do I mean is that man has full backing of both the ministry and agencies under Ministry of Trade. And I think it's high time that the Ministry of Communication, NCC, NITDA, NIMC, and every other agency that is under the Ministry of Communication, they need to see the advocacy group as a critical part of their various organizations. I think this has to change if we are going to move forward. And we must see ourselves, they must see us as growth partner. That's what I think is missing.
There's also the question of collaboration among players in the industry. The banks have the bankers committee, and when they want to drive a particular agenda, how should the issue of collaboration, partnership be channeled in such a way that the first tier licensees can help drive growth of the second tier and other licensees?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there's need for more inclusiveness in the industry. ATCON should see out on as part of it, and together we can move the industry forward. So there's need for more, inclusiveness at the level of advocacy. That's what I would say, and I think we'll work towards that.
Thank you. Thank you. One more, please.